Hey everyone, Pastor Andrew back with another Wednesday Word. This week, as I prepare for another time away from the office, I've been thinking about a topic that we're going to be addressing in the retreat that I'm going on. The retreat is called The People of God, a Sacred Prism. And the goal of this retreat is for people of the Christian faith, the Jewish faith, and the Muslim faith to get together and talk about prayer and what prayer means in our various traditions and how it helps us to connect with God. And that's got me thinking about how, as Lutheran Christians, we can approach relationships with people of different religious traditions. For much of our history, going back to the days of Luther and before that, Christians have tended to take a largely oppositional stance toward people of other faiths. We've contended that as Christians we have the truth, pure and unadulterated, and that folks in these other traditions have some lesser form of it if we recognize the truth in them at all. I don't think that's a faithful way to live in our current climate. It's true that we should stand on our convictions, that we believe that the gospel is true, that Jesus is the Son of God. And yet, that doesn't preclude us from approaching people of other religious traditions with curiosity, with a desire for understanding how their traditions also reflect the truth about God. When we approach in that spirit of curiosity, as we talked about in last month's sermon series, we have the opportunity to learn things about the nature of the divine that we wouldn't otherwise. So I'd contend that this oppositional stance is less than adequate for our current day. For example, people in the Muslim tradition have this profound emphasis on the oneness of God, on shunning anything that would put earthly creatures or created things on par with the divine. That's something that we can learn from, something that can help us to avoid the subtle ways that we can move into idolatry as we elevate things that shouldn't have a proper place with God. In the same way, we're part of a tradition that, particularly in the Protestant realm, has often focused a lot on belief, on what we say about God, about what we think about God. And in the Jewish tradition, there's a corrective to that. Not that they aren't rigorous in thinking about God, but that the emphasis on a day-to-day level is much more on how we live out our faith in God, what it means to be people who trust in God, how that affects our relationships with one another, the concrete things that we do each day. For people who sometimes lose that emphasis on praxis, on how we practice the faith in a day-to-day way, connecting with our Jewish friends and neighbors can help us to recapture that really important part of what it means to live as a person of faith. Being in these relationships doesn't mean that we have to swallow the other traditions whole. And it doesn't mean that we have to deny the truth of what we believe. But it does, in the right spirit, allow us to recover things about our own traditions that may have been lost or de-emphasized, and it can help us think about God in a broader way. As you think about your relationships with people who don't share your Lutheran Christian faith, I hope that you can find some ways to be open to the ways that God moves beyond our tradition. We'll see you on Sunday.